Hello and welcome. My name is Catherine Walters, and I am the host for the Joyful You Summit. And I'm partially laughing simply because my guest today, who's Tiffany Stuart, is just a delight. So you're definitely going to want to stay here and listen to this conversation. So anyway, back to me. I am a joy coach and an intuitive healer. In my business, Guided Change, I help people who are stressed and overwhelmed experience more joy and happiness. And I am so excited because I've gathered together 22 amazing experts who are here to share with you how they can help you feel, and the tools and techniques that they use can help you feel more positive, energetic, happy, joyful, and have a life full of fun. So as I said, Tiffany Stuart is with me today, and she is the president of Dynamic Office and Accounting Solutions, and that solutions is a really key word here. And her company provides staffing for businesses in the most effective, enthusiastic, innovative, and resourceful way. So welcome, Tiffany. Thank you for being here on the Joyful You Summit and sharing your expertise.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was such a nice invitation, and I'm definitely honored.
Oh, awesome! And Tiffany, you're just so positive. May I start out with how we were having trouble with the getting connected and everything, and all the technology working, and I couldn't see you, you could see me, and yet, what were your responses to that?
It just was not that big of a deal, right? We just needed to figure out a different way. So we pulled out some other contraptions and got it going. So apparently I look small on the screen, but that's okay.
and see, that's what's so beautiful is because, we're just laughing and smiling and having a good time. And we didn't let this whole technology little glitch throw us off. So Tiffany, tell us a little bit more about you. What's your story? How is it that you are so positive and that you're able to stay up when things are happening that are challenging?
It's a really good question because I think sometimes on the inside you don't always feel up, right? You're not always motivated to be smiling or laughing, but what you realize is that it's so much easier to be smiling and happy and have an outward view, because when you're doing that, it kind of just keeps coming. I have 2 teenagers. I have a business, I'm a single mom, and I get a lot of things that get thrown in my way that, maybe for some people would be huge blocks. I just think that they're just all hurdles, right? And hurdles are just meant to be leaped over. And sometimes they're bigger and sometimes they're smaller, but at the end of the day, the goal is just get over them. So I think
I love that. What an image! What an image for everyone that these things are just hurdles, and you just get to jump over them.
Well, you know what? It keeps you mentally agile, right? All the jumping.
You're definitely agile for sure. So tell us more. Were you always this way? Did your family model this to you? I mean, how did you learn this? Because I certainly wasn't that way, and I have a lot of a problem came in my face, and I wouldn't know what to do. So where'd you learn this?
I would love to tell you that I do come from a family of entrepreneurs, from my grandfather, my dad, my uncle, but I also come from a very long line of depression. My grandmother had committed suicide. My mom struggles terribly with it. Cousins. I mean, there's a lot of that in my world. And I think, I don't think I was raised in the most positive environment. Not that it was horrible, but I don't know that it was, hey, it was just kind of more like feelings were kind of blown off and you didn't really have a lot of right to be anything, but you know what, you'll just get over it. You'll just get over it. And so I think it took a long time to realize that just getting over it isn't it. It's really taking it on and going, this really is a problem. And I can be sad and I can be upset and I can be all those things. And then I can get through it, right? Because you might need to go through those feelings. But if you don't go through all that stuff, it's very, very difficult, I think, to just get over it. So I think it's really working the process. I lost my dad when I was about 15 years old, and he was probably the most wonderful person I could think of. He was very gentle. He was very nice. He listened to Pavarotti all the time in the house and, had lots of friends around. So he was very gregarious, and I don't think I ever heard him raise his voice. So I really don't know. I mean, I think that you can either decide to give in to issues that come up, or you can decide, I mean, I don't know, it's all just a decision. I don't know if I have the real simple sauce or why I am the way that I am. I do know that I count on me. So if I stop going, who's going to do it for me? Who's
And
going to make
although,
it
right,
going?
you're making some really good points here. And like, if you don't keep going, who is? And the other is, and you talked about your father being a wonderful role model for you, which is great. But you said it was a decision. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you decide to do this. You don't, you realize you have a choice here. I can either be not, and you choose to actually. You also said that you choose to look at your emotions. You don't just blow them off. You look at them, and then what do? You must process them in some way, so that then you can find a solution and move on.
Well, people are always so worried about, oh, I got to get on track. I got to get on track. I got to get on track. Well, you know what? Sometimes you just need to fall off track and it's okay. And you find out that you're not going to die. What is the worst thing that could happen when you fall off track? You just fall off track and then you figure it out and you work your way back. And the next track that you're on might be that much better. But people are just so worried about, I have to be balanced. I have to be this. It's like, you actually don't have to be. It's great when you are. But sometimes you're not, and it doesn't make you any worse, and it doesn't mean you can't accomplish that much more. I think I also realized, I've watched a lot of people be mean to people, whether it's in business or just in person, and I realized that, there's nothing more frustrating than someone you can't get mad at. I
Mm,
mean, someone's ugly to you, and you're like, okay, that's awesome. You know what? That is your opinion. And they look at you like you have lost your mind. And so people love to get other people riled. And when you finally decide, I'm just not going to go there, it makes it
mhm.
really frustrating for somebody that's trying, and they kind of move on. So it allows you to kind of sort people actually out of your life in a way that's not just cutting them off. It's just they don't really want to be around you because you're not going to argue back.
Right, you won't engage with them. And the beautiful thing about that is those people, that are really angry and frustrated, whatever, with their own lives, are trying to dump it back on you. It sounds like you don't take it on. You don't engage. You let it go. And that way you get to stay in a positive, higher vibration. And since they're in a lower vibration, they just leave your life.
Yeah, and I think for a long time, I think you end up getting full of codependency, right? You end up getting full of trying to take care of everybody else, and one day you go back to that little thing that all the flight attendants say to you when you're on a plane, and they say, "Put on your own mask first before
Hmm.
you assist anybody else." And it's like, wait a minute, I would take that advice from a perfect stranger, but I'm not doing that. How can
Exactly.
I be better? How can I go 18 hours a day and not get rest and still be okay tomorrow? I can't. So some of the best advice I got in my worst moments in life, I almost lost everything. I had someone embezzle from us. It was just a nightmare. We went from doing $10 million dollars in sales to dropping to almost 3 million. And it was almost overnight. And on the heels of that, it was just, it was one thing after another. I had neck surgery. I had back surgery. You name it. I was in the thick
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a friend of mine, and she goes, I have some advice for you. And I said, oh, thank God, because I certainly need it, right? I have no idea what to do. She goes, go to sleep. I'm like, what? Go to sleep? I can't go to sleep. I have so much to do. She goes, the only advice for you I have is go close your eyes, take a sleeping pill, go to sleep, whatever you need to do, but go to sleep. Because until you get some rest, you're not going to make a single decent decision.
Mhm.
And that was incredible advice because it's absolutely true. When you're not rested, you're just spinning
Mm-hmm.
and everything is overwhelming and everything is bigger and your responses are not necessarily appropriate because you don't have it together. So that was probably just the most amazing piece of advice. And the other really awesome piece of advice that I've recently got was, as getting up and being happy or getting up and doing your job or going to the gym or whatever it is has nothing to do with motivation.
Mm-mm.
Everybody's so worried about getting motivated. And it's like, you look at these football players, they're not always motivated to go to the gym, but it has to get done. You just need to go do it. Whether you're motivated or not is completely irrelevant. The job's not going to get done or you're not going to reach your goal if you don't just go take care of it. I thought, wow, that is really good because you're not always motivated, but it still needs to be done.
Exactly, and I love those. And I think you're sharing some really valuable tips with people, because one, sleep, when people are stressed and overwhelmed, and they're many times they're not sleeping well, And so when you're saying, you've got to have this sleep because you can't come from a place of being grounded and being able to make good decisions, that is so true. I mean, I lose it when I don't get enough sleep. I'm not as patient. I'm just, it's just crazy. I don't operate well, and no one does. So the sleep is a really key thing for people who are stressed and overwhelmed. That other thing is that piece which you just mentioned about you just have to go do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's like the Nike piece of just do it. It really is. You don't, it's not about motivation. It's like, if you're responsible, like you're responsible for your company, you can't just like not show up for work. You're the
Even
leader.
on the days that I want to, what?
Yeah, exactly. So Tiffany, I bet you still go to work no matter what.
I'm really fortunate because I love what I do. One of the things you were talking about earlier about the staffing piece, every single day I get to help, my whole team, we all get to help build businesses and grow economy. And we also get to change lives in the process. And sometimes that's from a business side where we're placing people in a company where managers get to finally go home on time because they're not stretched so thin and they're not overworked. And on the other side, you have somebody that's either been in maybe they've been in a stagnant career, or maybe they are not working, or maybe they're going through divorce, or maybe they weren't sure what they wanted to do. And we get to go and put them in a new opportunity that you watch them flourish, right? And there's people that sometimes just need to make their mortgage payment, and they wouldn't have made it if you didn't get them to work on a temporary job. So that's a pretty gratifying deal every morning.
Right. So I can see why you want to get up and go to work, and because you're helping so many people. You're helping both ends of it too, because you're helping the businesses and you're also helping people find positions so that it can bring them, help them in their lives in the basic areas, because we're talking at those levels of survival. But then what about the joy and the happiness? I mean, how I'm sure you, maybe it's not the word motivate, but how do you help your people stay enthusiastic and innovative and effective in the work that they do?
Gosh, first of all, I think that a lot of it comes from within. And I think most of the people that I work with internally in my office, they have that inside of them. They truly like life. They really enjoy that. And so I think that's part of our hiring strategy, is to find those people that like that. The other thing is having an environment where people can talk about whatever it is that they need to talk about, and to make sure that everyone knows that whenever there's an opportunity to go stretch yourself, there's opportunity to make a mistake. And that's okay, because if you're not making mistakes, you're not stretching yourself. And so I think that that's a really big part of what we have here internally, is people do feel like it's okay. And it's not okay to not stretch yourself. That's what's not okay.
Right. And see, that's beautiful, because we're so programmed in our culture that we don't, like children, they try and they explore, they make mistakes all the time, and they just get up and keep going. But we as adults, somehow we stop ourselves unless we can do it perfectly. And what you're saying is exactly the opposite. It's like, make the mistakes, but the important thing is to keep stretching, to keep growing. And that piece, that does take you to the joy. When you get out of your comfort zone and start stretching, you build confidence, and you also experience more joy because you feel better about yourself.
Well, and I think too, again, knowing that a failure or a big mistake isn't fatal. It's not fatal. Nobody's dying. And when you really look at what's the worst thing that's going to happen if I blow it, right? The company's not going to fail. Nobody's going to die. And all you have to do is call the client or call the candidate and say, guess what? I totally made a mistake on this. I'm so sorry. Here's what our new plan is. I mean, people are going to be mistaken. I think you're so much more respected as a business partner, as a person, when you're able just to tell somebody outwardly you own it, you're accountable for it, and you're teaching them too that it's not fatal.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I think too often in the workplace people make mistakes, or even just in life with your kids, with whomever, and they're like, maybe they just won't notice. Maybe they're not going to notice that I screwed that up, and I'll just throw a blanket over it. And that never works. It just never works. Eat the frog, admit the mistake, and then go forward. And you can't, I think that's the other thing that really helps me is that I am a true salesperson by nature. I am all about what's next, because I know that of all those next things, a certain percentage of them are not going to work. But if I don't have enough of those next in my head, then I'm going to dwell on the ones that aren't working. And you just need to have enough next to figure out that in 20 next things that I'm going to do, I can just plan for, let's say 7 failures, even though that might seem high. And then you only have 2, right? And then it's like, yay, I got another win. I did all my next. I didn't get any, I got way less mistakes or failures, call them. I don't know if they're real failures, but I'll call them failures for the sake of the word. I only had 2, and guess what? It's okay. And then I get to teach somebody else so they don't have to make the same mistake that I did.
That's beautiful, because it really, like, well, they're not mistakes. To me, they're always learning opportunities, and you see what works and what doesn't. So there's not really a failure, but I love how you say how you just you fall off track, you just get back up. You make a failure, figure out what went wrong, or like I loved how you said, you say, okay, I messed up, this didn't work, and that you take responsibility for it, and you own it, and you move on, and you find a solution. So you're always staying in that positive place rather than dwelling. I know in the past, when I would have made a mistake, I would have been so ashamed and so embarrassed about it. I would just want to, tunnel vision, hide my head, and just, I stayed focused on the mistake. Okay. And what I love hearing you say is that don't focus on the mistake, just own it, take responsibility, and find the next solution and the next and the next, and keep going.
You asked me something about how I learned to be this way. And what you just mentioned was being, ashamed and living in that mistake and going, oh my God, everybody's going to know, and I'm going to look like an idiot. And I was there for a really long time. But what's funny is so many people are willing to jump on that board with you. They're like willing to jump, like, oh my God, you must be devastated. You must be this. And then it just grinds you, because now everybody feels the same way. And when you don't dwell on it, it doesn't allow anybody else to jump into that.
Yep.
And you're like, yeah, I know, we blew it. Okay, so what's our next program? It doesn't even allow the people on your team to stay in the thing that you just did. Because that doesn't take you anywhere.
Right.
There's a book, and you can use it with anything. And I'm sure all of your listeners at one point, whether they have kids or don't have kids, because they were all kids, they probably read Dr. Seuss' Green Eggs and Ham.
Right.
#1 best-selling sales book for adults.
Yes, it is.
And when you reread that book as an adult and you start to add your work words into it versus the, do you want it on a moat, do you want it on a float, do you want it on a boat? And you relate it to, for me, for my business, it would be, oh, do you have a vacation coming up? Is somebody, going to be on maternity leave? Is somebody injured? Do you have a time where you're going to be, staying open? Do you have any special projects? I mean, it's just that you continue to ask until you find. And you can really do that in so many things in life, because all Dr. Seuss did was find solutions.
Yes,
actually,
that's perfect.
He just suggested things, actually, and then he came to a result.
Right. But that's perfect. And as a former children's librarian, I've always loved that book, but I love how you've taken it. I have to go back and get another copy and just reread it and play with that, because it's a wonderful tool. Who would think that you could take a Dr. Seuss, or as you're reading, Green Eggs and Ham to your children, that you in your own mind are putting those things like a vacation or whatever else that you might need that will really support you. And that's perfect. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely delightful and wonderful. So Tiffany, tell us about, you've mentioned it a little bit, but what do you do to stay positive and keep moving forward when life throws you curveballs, when a child is sick, or something with your business happens, or maybe one of your major key players in your business leaves, or foreclosure? What do you do when those challenging things happen? How do you?
Well, I'm blessed to say I haven't had a foreclosure, so I'm gonna not even use that word, because
good. I
haven't had any of that.
Because you're not, may I pause you there? Because you're not even going there. You're not even letting your energy go there, so you won't have one. That's a great tip.
Well, you asked what keeps me positive. I don't know that I'm always positive. Again, like I said, inside my head, I don't know that I'm always positive. But what I do know is I only can control so many things. I'm only so powerful, right? I can control what I'm wearing. I can control, there's things, but in the scheme of the world, there's only so much that I can control. And I'll tell you, since last September, my daughter moved out of her dad's house. She's with me full time. She's 16 years old. In the last 21 months, she's been in and out of the hospital probably 20 times in the ER with pancreatic issues, stomach migraines, and I've never had sick kids. My kids they were never sick. So in the last 2 years, it's been really crazy. It's been a lot of sleepless time. I can tell you from September to present, my uncle had a stroke. My other uncle passed away. My mom's been sick. My aunt's been sick. My son got sick. We lost an account. We're a little cash tight. But in all those things, there's nothing I can do about that.
Yes.
There's nothing. Those are, bad things happen to good people all the time.
Absolutely.
And it's not my fault.
Mm-mm.
Some of it's my problem, but it's not my fault.
Right.
So it doesn't change the way I still have to wake up every morning and I have a choice. So I guess it is just really a matter of you wake up and you go, okay, excuse me. And then, excuse me. Sometimes you wake up and you go, sometimes you get dropped on the head.
That was perfect timing because that was perfect.
But you do, sometimes you just wake up and everything seems like it has gone. It's like you have a giant poo cloud over your head.
Mm-hmm.
Horrible. And you're going, oh my God, when is this going to pass? This is horrible. But you still have people around you. They didn't do it. You still have your kids. They didn't do it. So what am I going to be? I can't have a negative outward response to everybody else because it has nothing to do with them.
Right.
And it doesn't make me feel good.
Right.
Like I feel miserable if I decide to take in all that awful and go, oh my God, this is so terrible and it's awful and your posture gets bad and you don't walk proud and you just have to, really, you have to realize what you have control of and what you don't. And when you realize you don't have control, it's only what you can do to feel better, right? And if your thing is cooking, I cook a lot. I love to cook because it relieves my stress. So if I'm having a horrible day, I'll go home and I'll just cook up a storm. I'll make phone calls to customers that I know love me because I know I'm going to get a good response from them, right? Go on a walk. There's whatever your thing is that brings you back, you have to do that. And you also have to reach out. The thing that comes to you, let's say you get an email one day and there's a class that's free and you go, ugh, I never have time for this. You change your thought process and you go, no, I've chosen not to make time for that in the past, but today, because everything else hasn't been working really well, I'm going to give it a shot. And you start opening yourself up to a lot of different possibilities. And again, like that control thing, when you recognize the things that you do have control over and you stop using the words like, oh, I can't go out tonight. Oh, I have so much laundry to do. I can't do this. And it's like, actually, I can. I'm just choosing to get my laundry done because then I can start my week off fresh. And when you start to phrase things in those ways, you're not powerless to those things that you can control. And you're also being honest with your friends, maybe even by saying, it's not that I don't want to go. It's not even that I can't. But if I don't get this done, I'm going to not wake up the way I need to tomorrow. And I'm going to have more errands or tasks or stuff that I could just knock out right now.
Exactly. And Tiffany, if I may stop you, it's just like, I use those words with my clients all the time. It's like, reframing, choosing those positive words. And you do that. You've learned, you've ingrained that as part of your habit, as part of who you are, that's what you do. You're seeing that you have choices, but it's your language that's so important. So your language and your choices, and you are there. You are just modeling for us beautifully how you manage your company, you run your company. And I love some of the self-care things you mentioned, which were like what you went back to when you were having that really difficult day that you couldn't control. You went back to, what can I control? What do I love to do? You love to cook, so you went home and you cook. Or you did there was something else that was really important. You called friends, you reached out to other people, and you listened to your language of what you were saying. You did, you said maybe go out in nature, do whatever it is that makes you feel good. But calling people that you knew you could check in with, and they would help you, raise your energy. And that's okay to do. It's okay to connect with people that you know and that you have a good relationship with, to say, to start on that upbeat and then have them help you take you higher.
Well, and I think sometimes that reach out isn't always telling them what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just finding out about what's going on with them.
Yes.
And I think that's the other thing, when you're kind of at your worst, you need to go figure out who you can go be good to, because it's real easy to find people that have it worse than you.
Yes.
And they don't always have to be far away. There's a lot of folks. So take your time and go help somebody else and realize that, wow, this is kind of a first world problem.
Well, you do that quite a bit, and so does your company. With like you're doing a lot of volunteer work and things like that. So how does that help? How does that help uplift you? Keep
When you hear stories about people that have been touched by cancer, or when you hear stories about people that, let's say, I lost my dad to cancer and watched him die. When you find out that there's camps for kids that don't have cancer, but their families did, and they just go to a camp where other kids are going through the same struggle, watching the same horrible sickness, and they just get to go let go of all that and just go be with other people and be completely normal and not talk about it or not talk about it, but everyone can relate.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really beautiful thing for those kids. And I look back and go, God, I wish I would have had something like that. When my son goes with me sometimes, and he'll raise money, and he's done it on his own. He does card tricks, and he did it on his own. I didn't ask him to. And he's raised almost $3,000 for cancer.
Wow.
And I look at that, and for me, it's like that involvement, it's pretty amazing. My daughter's always been really involved with a lot of the special ed kids at her school. And I hear that, and that's amazing, because that's giving, so that's just uplifting.
It is. Giving is uplifting, and it's not the over giving, but it's that giving from your heart. And I love how you're modeling with your children and they too are a part of that giving, because that's really that connection to other people. Mm-hmm. Really what makes it, that helps us be in more joy.
Well, and I think there's areas in the world that are, a little bit more in a bubble. And I would say where I live in Danville is a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful that my kids have seen outside of the bubble. I'm grateful that we have a hugely diverse group of people in our world. In just our immediate family world. I'm thrilled that they're open-minded. I think that's the other thing, to be joyful, you have to be really open-minded, and you have to realize that whatever is going on in somebody else's world, whether you agree with it or not, it's just it's irrelevant, right? If you're open-minded, what they're doing doesn't affect you. Whether you agree with it or not is just be open-minded.
Right.
And it doesn't bog you down. Yes. People get so angry about what other people are doing, and it's like, get over it. You may not like it. You don't have to do it.
Exactly. Tiffany, you are just a fountain of you are living, you're just modeling for everyone that you touch and that who knows you and gets in contact with you, a positive way of living one's life and of running a business. And, it's like your business is $1 million, multi-million-dollar business, and yet that doesn't consume you. It's not to you. I would say it's the money, the money that you have or you bring in. It's not, the money is not what gives you joy.
Well, and I would say, when you get really humble when your business tanks, and you realize that, I do like what I do, and it hasn't always brought the most money, right? There's a lot of overhead in what I do. So it's not always the most profitable, but I'm grateful that what I do every day, I like it.
Yeah.
I love the people that I work with. And that's, I just feel like that's a blessing.
And that's where your joy is. It's in what you're doing and the people that you work with. That's what brings you the joy. And it's not
I listen to you, though. I have to say, for anybody that's out there, and I'm trying to turn this up again because it's not being very loud, but I listen to what you're saying about, that I'm putting this out there and that I'm living it. And, sometimes I certainly don't necessarily believe that that's the case, right? Because my head's so full of stuff that's going on. It's like, oh my God, there's all these things. And you think you're portraying it, but inside it doesn't always feel like that. And it goes back to okay, it's nobody else's fault, right? You have to just keep smiling and kind of keep moving forward. And I think it's a big deal to understand that it's okay not to always feel it on the
Yeah,
inside.
absolutely.
You're really quiet. I wish I knew why you got really quiet.
I don't know. But as long as as long as the recordings, we'll be okay. So Tiffany, if people want to like connect with you or your company, Dynamic Office and Accounting Solutions, what's a link or something that you can give them that can be on our Joyful You Summit webpage so that they can get in touch with you or your business or whatever? Or because you shared so much today, it's really a value, and I'd love to have a way for people to do that if you're willing.
I would love to. And let me say that if there's people out there that are looking for a job search or help with, whether it's a resume, while we're not resume writers, we certainly help a lot of folks. Or a company, an employer that's looking to hire people. I mean, that is something that is of a huge interest. So if they go to dynamic.com.
And the two is a two, right? The number
Two
two.
is a number two. So it's go to dynamic.com. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or you can email me directly at Tiffany@dynamic.com.
Awesome. Oh, that's great to think because I have a feeling there are going to be a number of people that are going to want to connect with you in one way, shape, or form. So, because you just are so authentic, and that really is just, people are not, and so you really are. You've shown us, you've taken us, for a short time into Tiffany's life and Tiffany's world, and we really thank you for that. So many blessings. We'll be back in a moment. Thank you, everyone. It's been a wonderful pleasure. I hope you had a great time listening to Tiffany, and we'll be back soon. Namaste.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.